Welcome back to Mining Now and our third annual Australian tour. We're filming episodes from iMark, and we're featuring, for the third time, SafeGauge, and we've got their electrical engineer, Scott Elero. You've seen their managing director and founder, Luke Dawson, on the show a couple times, once from Mine Expo, once from, actually, iMark a couple, 2 or 3 years ago. So good to expand the reach of who SafeGauge is. Scott, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared. Yeah, lovely to be here.
How long have you been with the company?
So this November, I'll actually be 4 years with the company. So I was one of the first engineers when they started. It was just me and Luke in an office with one sales guy in a really tiny office. And yeah, in the 4-year period, we've grown into this big team with having global outreach as well. So yeah, it's been awesome to see that growth.
Did you know Luke from before, or how did you get hooked in with him?
Yeah, so interestingly, I was doing an internship with the Melt, which is where we shared the space with before. So we were before in Warners Bay, and we shared space with tech companies in the similar space. And when I was doing my internship final year presentation, Luke Dawson was actually part of my audience at that stage. And he was quite impressed with what I did, how I presented it. And, he pulled me into his office and say, hey, would you like a job after you finish uni? And I was like, yeah, I'm keen for that because I love what SafeGauge was doing. And he had a lot of passion I could see as well, because he was one of the, mechanics out in the field.
Yeah.
He saw the risk and he came up with this really great idea. So, I like what we're trying to achieve in the company in terms of implementing live work, and also exciting stuff to work on from an engineering perspective as well.
What did you present to him that you think that caught his attention?
Yeah, so what we were doing is for normal air conditioning systems, I was in a company called Orata, and what they were doing, they were creating thermal panels. So rather than having an aircon, you'll have thermal panels inside the wall that will cool the house. Rather than having aircon, which is a really ineffective system in terms of energy consumption. So we're using a renewable system that it's a totally new groundbreaking technology as well. So you'd have solar panels and you'd never have to run your aircon off the grid system. It will purely be part of solar panels. The only challenge was these thermal panels that go in between the walls had to be installed when you're building the house. So that was the only issue we found with that. But basically I built the whole control system for that company, and also the mobile app that they use to control that as well.
Wow. Yeah, no, I could see how that would catch his attention. Now, what was the first week? You're in this little office, you've talked, you've decided you're going to give it a go. What did you do in the first week? I mean, down to like playing around with stuff. What was filling up your time?
Yeah, so first week, coming out of uni with no experience, you basically get thrown in the deep end. So I remember one of our wireless MultiTool, it had a battery issue. So my first job was to solve a bug that the customers were facing out in the field. And it was pretty exciting because basically the software that I was going to write was going to be deployed out. Now, coming out of uni, that's pretty exciting, because you're going to deploy out this software to multiple different units out there. So yeah, I was quite stoked with that. So that was what I worked on the first week.
Oh, so the product was already in the market when you joined then, right?
Yeah, so we had the pressure transducer, and we had one wireless MultiTool. So we had only two products at that time.
Okay, and then how long did it take to sort of fix the issue, the bug that was in there?
So it took a week to solve it. But when I actually solved it, I didn't quite solve the bug. That's what I realized. So I thought I'd solved the bug, but I had not actually solved the bug, which was really, it's engineering as well. Like sometimes you basically learn from your mistakes. So the bug I'm actually referring to is a battery indicator. So the customers wanted a way to know how much battery I have left in the tool.
Right.
Now I put a software fix in there to increment the battery as time goes by when it's charging, but it was working a bit too fast. So when they take it out, it's saying, hey, it's 90%, but it wasn't actually 90%. But we ended up fixing the issue, but it was just a really good learning from my perspective that, sometimes you think you solve a bug, but you need to do a bit more testing to validate that as well.
Let's talk about our Heavy Industry World Tour brought to you by Savona Equipment. Find, market, and sell surplus and used equipment. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. The mining industry is evolving. Efficiency and sustainability are more important than ever. Drawing on decades of expertise, Aderco's innovative fuel additive enables you to decarbonize your operations without sacrificing performance. Lower emissions, protect your engines, and save on fuel expenses, all with one simple solution. Choose Aderco, the smart choice for sustainable, profitable mining, because you can save money while making a positive impact. Visit aderco.com to learn more. Is your screen struggling to keep up with your throughput goals? General Kinematics STM Screen is changing the way mines think about their screening process. The lowest cost of ownership in a vibrating screen package comes from General Kinematics. GK's technology is proven to last longer than standard mining screens. They match longevity with increased screening efficiency to create the reliable performance mine sites demand. To explore all of what General Kinematics has to offer, visit gkmining.com. In the toughest environments, you need the hardest, toughest steel. With a full range of grades designed to meet the extreme demands of hard-wearing applications, from mining to construction and heavy transport, Hardox Wearplate has it covered. Trust Hardox Wear Steel to extend your equipment service life, boost efficiency, and power up productivity. Their wear experts partner with industry leaders to deliver solutions that stand up to any test. Ready to tackle your toughest wear challenges? Bring it on. Visit hardox.com to learn more.
And then what did you, what was sort of the first, so once you moved on from that, when did you start getting involved in the development of some of these new product lines? And which was the first one?
Yeah, so I was involved in one of our products was called the Data Link. That wireless multi-tool I'm referring to is a very simple tool. It doesn't do any data logging or anything. Luke had got a lot of interest from the customers that they'd like to do data logging, being able to capture the reports for their tests as well. Because what they were doing, they were taking photos with their phones of the wireless multi-tool, the readings of the sensor on there, which is quite ineffective. They just wanted automatic generated PDF reports done.
Oh, I see.
Instantly, yeah. And then that wireless multi-tool as well only could connect to up to 7 sensors, but the customers wanted up to 20 sensors at a time. So I was also tasked with that as well. Now, having the data logging capability and also connecting to that many sensors at the same time was quite technically challenging for a first year, straight out of uni person. So it was a really challenging project. So I led that project, and we deployed around 20 units in 2022. Wow. They've been going well so far. Yeah.
So you're not actually that far out of uni then, right? You're 4 years with SafeGauge, and then before that you were in university. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I want to talk more about milestones in that, but that's you've done a lot of development for that quick. Were you even during university? Were you just doing your studies, or did you? I'm going to rephrase the question. Did engineering, what you went to school for, did it come across just as, oh, this is a thing that'll provide a good living, or is this something that you were passionate about? And is that why you went after that?
So I think for me it was mainly I used to just love mathematics growing up, and having that love for finding tinkering with electronics here and there. So it is a passion that I had from back when I was really young. And then I've relocated from Kenya to here, so I moved to Australia to pursue my studies. I had my family supporting me on there, and then that's how I got into engineering. But I think what helped me strive in SafeGauge is having that drive to really because we're trying to really help with the eliminating of live work. So having that in mind, and having a senior engineer as well to guide you as well helped a lot. So Luke was helping us with the requirements, but we'll always had a senior engineer to mentor me to assist me if I get any technical challenges on there.
It must just be an amazing amount of learning in the last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, SafeGauge is not a stagnant it is the exact opposite of a stagnant, very robust, quick development. Like even the design of their product is just sort of beautifully designed. What do you, over the last 4 years, what are some major milestones that not just you've hit, but the company that you've all hit together?
Yeah, I think one of the major milestones we've had is definitely being able to moving to the bigger space. So when we were in Warners Bay, when we were sharing a space with the different tech companies, when we moved into a space that felt like ours, we could we had a really good engineering budget. We could, hit out the place with all the tools we need, the power supplies. Because when we were really small and it was just me and Luke, we used to share most of these tools, and it was really hard, doing development in that aspect. So from an engineering perspective, 100% having our own space where we could, we have our own power supplies and everything. So that being able to develop the products makes it really easy because, we have everything we need in that area. And also having the team grow as well helped a lot. So back in the days when I was the first engineer, you're sort of like a one-man army to some extent, you're the one doing the QA, you're the one doing the testing, you're the one doing the development. It's quite a lot on one person's shoulder. So now that we have a really big team, we have production engineers, we have a quality assurance engineer. So it helps a lot to take that burden off one person's shoulder, and it also helps you focus on the role you're doing. And that's, I think, what has helped us a lot on that aspect.
OK Foreign Trade and Mining Company is the leading producer of injection chemicals from the mining and tunneling industries. What distinguishes OK is that all processes are managed entirely in-house, from the production of raw materials to research and development and sales. This vertical integration ensures that injection chemicals are tailored specifically to the required needs. The products are utilized for strata stabilization, roof support, and the prevention of air, gas, and water leaks. A commitment to quality is demonstrated through accreditations from NAC, IAAC, APAC, and ILAC, ensuring that all tests and products comply with the highest international standards. Visit okdtm.com to learn more. For almost 30 years, SureStrike International has been delivering high-quality hydraulic impact hammers. Whether you are in aggregate, mining, or industrial applications, they help provide superior output, process flexibility, and remarkable economics in your front-end processing. With hammers ranging from 25,000 to a staggering 150,000 foot-pound of striking force, SureStrike has the perfect solution for any application. It's time to optimize your front-end processing with SureStrike International. To learn more, visit them at SureStrikeInternational.com. In mining, reliable connectivity is essential for both efficiency and safety. Communication engineers often struggle to maintain network coverage in tough environments. For over 20 years, Pointing has been at the forefront of solving these challenges with a range of circular polarized helical antennas. Their antennas support cellular and Wi-Fi networks and are tailored for both open pit and underground operations. Ensure reliable mining communication. Get in touch with Pointing now. Visit pointing.tech.
What now in specifics? I see you've got something there, like this product even that you've got behind you or sitting on the table. What are some either designs or updates? Some of the milestones specific to the product.
Yeah, so for example, I have a MultiTool Pro here. I can show you. So this one is so the wireless multi-tool I was referring to before did not have any data logging ability of it. So this is a big game changer. So as I mentioned, we had a limited channels of 7. So basically, you could only connect up to 7 sensors. Now with this MultiTool Pro, you can connect up to 12. You can get your data logging. You can get your PDF reports. You can get your CSV outputs as well. So this was a really big milestone because we basically managed to achieve what exactly the customers are asking for from a safety perspective, but also efficiency, because now they can get the reports. Now, with our sensors, because they're digital, you can't really cheat the system as per se. So it's not someone writing on a piece of paper and saying, hey, this is what the pressure was. It's a very automated system that's locked. So when you're doing the test, when you say this is clutch, right clutch, whatever pressure is recorded is going to come straight to this, and you're going to have the PDF report that you can send to your supervisor. So I think this has been a really big milestone that has helped a lot of the other sensors come in, because now we have this data logging ability that's helped us a lot.
Wow. And so to design something like that, what kind of time goes into that? Is that Yep, I don't have any concept of it. You could tell me it was a week or 2 years. I just have no. I'm guessing it's closer to 2 years, but
Yeah, 100% closer to 2 years. So it's we did run a lot of trials. So I actually went out to site in Brockman in WA. So went out to site, had one of these when we had our beta software. You got a trial with the customers. So what we did is like we do have 12 sensors here, but we still want to maintain that robust connection when you have 12 sensors connected. So what we had to do is like we had to go out to site and test that reliability as well. So it's a lot of back and forth with the customers to be able to make sure that the product we have, is robust enough for what they're testing.
yeah, I'm just. This is just my own curiosity. Hopefully, other people will find it interesting too. Designing something like that, does it start off on, you start with like the data sets that you're getting, you using a computer at first, then you got to find an electronic like that. I don't know what kind of device that is. That's obviously you originally you bought that from somewhere and then you program it. Like, what are the stages of that? We always just see the end results of stuff. We actually don't know. Does it start on a computer, then it goes to that device? Do you start on a tablet? Like, how does it all work, sort of putting it together?
So I think the way it starts from, you sort of focus first on the environment. What environment will this be used on? Now it's going to be used in a mining environment that's really hot. In Pilbara in WA, it gets to 45 degrees, 50 degrees on a summer day. So you look at the environment and then you look at the use case as well. These guys, when they're using these tools, they just want it to work. So they a military grade device. So those specs as well are what drives the choosing of the model of the tablet that you want. Now, once you get the model of the tablet, you now jump into the software. Now, the software side of it is, number one, it has to be very simple. We had the wireless MultiTool, which people loved the functionality. The only drawback, as I mentioned, was purely the data logging aspect of it. So now that you know that we have similar with Apple, how you see with their phones, they all look the same. You sort of have the same look and feel with iPhone 15, 14. So we wanted to build upon on that sort of user journey that our customers are used to. So we designed the software to look similar to that. So if you have a look at our old MultiTool, it has a really have really good same look and feel. You'll still have the color coding of the sensors and everything. So that way, if someone buys the advanced version of this, we call it the MultiTool Pro, and the MultiTool, they can still see the similarities there on there. So that now drives your software design. So you get a user UI UX designer. So UI is like for user interface. So they design the user interface and tell you what they want it to look like.
So this is like a program, like an open source program or something like that you design off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's called Figma. So it's basically it's not working software. It's just like drawing and making sure that, when the customer gets this, they're happy with the look and feel. So once we get that, we send it straight to the customer and get some feedback on it. So that before we even start writing a single line of code, we have a bit of an understanding of, okay, does this look good enough for what they're doing? Is it simple? Now, once we get that validation, now we get into the software, we start coding, we do the tests, strenuous test for quite a bit of time. Now, the beauty with this is you can push software updates remotely. So I can be sitting in the office and push an update to WA, to Colorado in USA, anywhere in the world, and it just takes around 3 minutes for the customer to get the software update instantly, and they can test up the new software. So that's the process that goes into it. Now, there's a lot of requirements that you have to make sure you don't skip in the line there, because you can either go down a rabbit hole and end up with the wrong device or the wrong software, or the right software that functions but it's not user friendly. So you have to be very careful when doing that.
Yeah, this is just something I'm very curious about, because you see even like the biggest companies in the world, they will release something and the design is just terrible, and I look at your design and I'm sort of blown away by it, to be honest, because it's just it looks like something that has been around for 50 years. It has just got all the everything's curved in the right spot. It looks so nice. And I'm seeing it even in the background when you're bringing up the tablet and showing the design. It's just so precisely done. is that a skill set, or is there a methodology that you follow to design something at that level, or is it just the right people designing it? I genuinely don't know. It's like Six Sigma for efficiency in manufacturing. Is there a methodology, or do you have to have a skill set?
So yeah, it's a bit of both, to be honest. So with the skill set, we definitely have we have a really good UI UX designer who has his own ethos. So with these guys, when they learn, when they get trained as well, they end up having their own ways of doing things. So now from a coding perspective, I don't really touch any of the UI UX design. That's mainly driven with this UX designer, and then Luke being the customer representative who gives the feedback. So having the two of them there, basically what you have is a UX designer who knows how to make everything look simple, and then you got Luke being the customer representative, making sure that it is functional for what it needs to do, because he's basically been out there,
In the field.
fixing these trucks and everything. Yeah, so he absolutely understands how it needs to function. So when you pair those two together, you absolutely get something brilliant.
Yeah, and when you said like he has his own ethos. So is that like there's a way that there's these stages that he goes through? Because I think it's very interesting to people. I mean, people can go on your website, see the products, and I mean it's very obvious the demand for your products. But I am fascinated by this design of such a high-end product. I mean, I've talked, but we talked about it on the show, but also privately, some of the companies you're working with, I mean, the biggest players in the industry, because this is such a high-end product. So there's a lot of people that wish they have an idea, they have a concept, but theirs is just not quite, and I'm not talking about competitors, I'm just talking about in the industry, but theirs doesn't quite have the edge yours does. So when you say he's got an ethos, is that a series of steps that he goes through that basically ensures that the end result is not only consistent across the products, but just from a usability, which is, you're saying Luke comes in on that as well?
Yeah. So before he starts, so for example, when he's prototyping this, the first stage would be absolutely so we call it different stages of the wireframe. So the first wireframe will just be an absolute grayscale. So absolutely zero colors. Just have the necessary content there.
That's what I was trying to understand. That's exactly, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So have the absolutely necessary content there. Let's, if we're going to have a sensor number, we definitely need 1 to 12 because we have 12 channels connected.
Right.
Have that there. Yeah. So because before you get into the coloring and everything and the edges, just absolutely have everything there. So you have that first stage. And then the second stage is now adding all your text and your, everything else you need in that aspect. So for example, here we have, like all your sensors on there. So on the gray scale, you'll find that the color for, 1 and 2 will just be exactly gray for all of them. So you won't have all the curves and everything. And then he basically is now adding more sort of look and feel into it, the further along you get in there. And now the important thing is even the grayscale part, you have to still validate that. And that's what helps us a lot with the design, because now once you have the first grayscale, he now comes back to us engineers and say, the software engineers, and say, hey, is this everything we can get from the technically feasible point of view? Because it's so much to have a pretty button here and there and some data that if we can't fetch it from a coding perspective, then there's no point having it. So it's a lot of back and forth with the software engineers, but also with Luke on the other hand as well. But that helps a lot to have that ethos correct.
You know what? You're saying it, and it's so simple, but I've actually been involved with some design, and we've done it the exact opposite way, and it's made a lot of work. We've sort of made it look pretty, and then try to input, well, we need it to do this, we need it to do that. And all of a sudden, the prettiness starts to go away as you start to sort of try to fit everything into this thing that you want to look like a certain way. But you're doing it the exact opposite way. You grayscale it, put all functionality in. Okay, now can we color code this? Could this button flash when this sensor goes off? Whatever it is, the functionality starts to get inputted. And okay.
100%. And just to add as well is the color coding as well, they all have a meaning. So for example here, we have the color coding for the sensors. Now, if you buy a 12-channel kit with the MultiTool Pro, you'll have a color for all of them. Now, you can notice from 8 to 12, we've sort of run out of the colors. Now, we go for dual colors. Now, that dual colors goes on the sensor as well. So, for example, here, we have a tachometer with a dual color. Now, this dual color band relates to the dual color on that. So that would be sensor number 8. Now, that's why I'm saying with the grayscale, it's really important, because if you don't really put in there, you can just add white and red there. But what does that really mean from, that perspective? So having that in there makes sure that we have, any styling is absolutely necessary for the functionality as well of the product.
Okay, I want to go on to the next stage. Is you've got a product. You take it out to a client, and then you start getting feedback. And I think anybody who's worked with any sort of development knows that feedback is because as soon as you hear, well, could we just do whatever? That can set off a chain of reaction. That is, there's 100 rabbit holes, there's 1,000 different opinions, and away we go. So you start getting that feedback. What inevitably happens, though, is once that feedback comes, someone else from your team will say, well, oh, no, let's do it this way, though. If we did it, but yeah, they're right. But if we did it that way, that would solve this. The way you go. How do you manage that, both from the usability? You built it up in a way you think is going to be functional. So from usability, even from a business case to make sure this thing stays as a business is still viable. How do you go through that entire process, especially with a product? This is not a computer. It's got functionality, but this is real world application stuff you're dealing with. So how do you approach that side of the business?
Yeah, so feedback is an interesting one. So to start with, before we even get the feedback from the customers, normally we get it from, as I mentioned, our customer representative. So we have some product specialists that are internally employees of the company. Now they help us because they go out to the customers, so they talk with the customers and the salespeople as well on a day-to-day basis. So that helps a lot, get a lot of the requested for features from the customers. Now for the direct feedback, that one's a really interesting one, because sometimes, as you know, you'll get feedback of something that's not necessary. It's a nice to have. So what we usually do first, we classify them. Is this a must have? Is this a nice to have? Is this a bug of the core functionality of the product? Because that's something we need to address as quick as possible. So we usually put the highest priority on the bug. So for example, here with the MultiTool Pro, if we say it connects to 12 sensors and for some reason something's happening with the last sensor, the customer bought the product expecting this functionality. So we usually address that first. But from the other perspective, how we filter that. So we have, as I mentioned, Luke was, one of these mechanics out in the field. So he has a really good feel for what's right and what's not necessary. So he is usually that filter to make sure that, okay, what we implement as well is necessary, to add value to the product. Now, not to say that all the feedback we get is not adding value, but sometimes you just got to be careful, as you're saying. Sometimes you get feedback that's, not absolutely not necessary. And it's more like a nice to have, as I mentioned. So we usually make sure we group those two. So once you have your must have, your nice to haves and your bugs, that clearly differentiates those three.
What do you think the biggest lesson you've learned in university is an interesting thing, because you have an idea of how things are going to work in the real world, for lack of a better term. And then you're in it. What's the biggest thing that either surprised you or thing that you had to adjust, either professionally or how you approach engineering or whatever it is?
Yeah. So when I finished, I used to be very, I wasn't like, I think the biggest lessons I've learned is being conservative. So I was not as conservative as I am now, and being conservative means, for example, this design here, there is a way that, I can go in and change every electronic design in there and, put in something fancy. But I think being conservative is something I've learned because, it's that saying again, if it works, don't touch it. But I think when I was a young engineer, I used to be very sporadic, and I want to change this, I want to try this new thing.
Right.
I think we use Bluetooth in our product. Bluetooth 6 was out 2 weeks ago, that comes in with all these new features. It's something I'd like to try, but I also understand from a business perspective, it's not necessary. It's more like a nice to have thing. So I think being conservative in nature has helped in that aspect where, if something works, just don't touch it, and then only touch it if it is necessary.
Right.
And that helps as well to always make sure that, you're always doing the right thing as well.
It's also good to like that passion that you have when you start something. It kind of, as you get more experience, you sort of learn to pour that energy, because you're being more conservative. You're pouring more energy into one things instead of spreading that energy out over 5 things. And it can really
100%.
accelerate your success.
100%. Yeah. So like you'll end up, and then it goes back to the nice to have and must haves, because you end up doing the must haves, only the things that are necessary to get that product going. And as you mentioned as well, like here at SafeGauge, you try and to be as agile as possible. Now, if I'm not conservative, I'll do something fancy, something different. The development takes, longer than expected, just because I'm trying this new thing. But if I just build upon the foundation that we have, you can get there really quickly.
Before I let you go, I was curious. You said you said Kenya, right? That's where you.
Yeah, Kenya. Yeah.
I haven't been to either country, so Australia or Kenya. But when you, I'm sure it was a big change in some respect. When you came from Kenya to Australia, was it just to go to university, or was the plan to, you started a whole life here now in Australia?
Yeah. The plan was to go to university. So we had a lecturer who went back home, and they do a lot of this interchange and benchmarking for the lecturers, just to see how different universities are doing different things. So that lecturer went back home, and then, through the different connections, he recommended University of Newcastle, and that's how I managed to get here. So, but I think the push has always been, Australia, you get your better living, and also, I think it's top 2% universities in the world as well. So like you really get top notch education as well.
Yeah, and then so was the plan then to stay in Australia and have your career here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So stay and build a career. I'm building a family as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you've already started your family?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have a toddler at home keeping me running around. Late nights, coffee, overdosing on coffee. But going well.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank
when
you.
Again, just curious. Like my wife came from the Philippines, and when she's in Canada, she calls the Philippines home. When she's in the Philippines, she calls Canada home. It's this funny thing. It's sort of like it's like it expands who you are. What has that experience been like for you? I can't imagine. I'm born and raised Canadian. I could live anywhere, and I'll always be Canadian. It's just ingrained it so deeply in you. What is that? What is that like? You're living in a new country. But I'm sure with these deep roots to where you come from.
Yeah, so absolutely. I always try and keep the roots, with home. That I think home. I think from my perspective, home will always be home, which is Kenya.
Yeah.
So usually try and go back home, every year when possible. When I think, as much as we try and as much as I'm building a culture here, we still have like a Kenyan committee here that I assist with. We meet and, we do our Kenyan food, keep the culture and that spirit going as well. So usually try and do that. And I'm trying to instill it to my kids as well, to make sure that, hey, this is, you understand your roots. We have a different language that we speak there. It's called Swahili. So, try and teach us Swahili as well. So I think it's really important to always still keep that, as much as Australia still know, where I came from.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's something you can change, even if you're here for a while, it is still your home.
It's funny how kids really bring that desire to connect with out, because like when my daughter came, like I like horses, my whole family's into them, but now I want to go see horses. I want her around it because I grew up with it, so I don't appreciate it as much. Well, now I really want her connected to those country roots that I grew up with in a way that before she came along, anytime I wanted to go back, I could go back. Now I have to actually share it with her, or she just will not be connected with it. She'll just be another kid driving by and she'll see a horse in the field and go, oh, it's a pony.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
my family, there's like
100%.
this deep connection to them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I'm going through the exact same thing. So for us, back home, safari is a really big thing. I'm going on safari because you can see the animals. It's so different to being in a zoo. But I've never been to one of those things because it is home.
Right.
Yeah. I find it really boring. But for my kids, I really want them to have that experience. Go in there and have that. It's very different and it's exciting as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey. I've never even lived in another country. I've traveled a bit, but I'm always coming back. So I'm kind of always fascinated. Even my wife, I'll pepper her with questions, just trying to understand what it's actually like. It is a big change, but I'm glad you found something, not just a job, but actually, a company that's doing, I've told Luke so many times, he's probably sick of hearing me say it now, but I just love what the company's doing. There's a few companies that I get to interview that they just nail a very specific part of the market. It's innovative. It's a beautiful design. It just sort of checks all the boxes. So it's quite neat that you're able to be a part of it. I hope we'll be talking again soon because it's just fascinating to watch the growth that SafeGauge has had.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me as well, Jared.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Of course, you can go check out SafeGauge, follow them on LinkedIn, connect with Scott on LinkedIn. We'll also put Luke's if you want to connect with him, or we'll put a link to his episodes as well. We sort of unpack all their product line on the. We did the Mine Expo episode, and that Luke sort of just went through every product that SafeGauge has released. So check those out. Thank you for watching. Suggest the guests. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.